Greetings, everybody. I am Elder Ricky Levon, teacher and facilitator of the Men's Bible Study Group at the Worthington Church. And today we're going to be talking about the lessons that we covered on lessons 5 and lesson 6. Now, lesson 5 was on To Those Who Forget God, and it covered Job chapter 8. And lesson 6 was on justice, and that covered Job chapter 9 and 10. Right now I have my notes here in case you see me looking down. But what we really covered in those particular lessons was Bildad, which was one of Job's friends' response into Job. For you have to understand that before we had already learned that Eliphaz, another one of Job's friends, decided to try to encourage Job, but instead it only infuriated him. So now because of that, Bildad decides to get in there, and once he does that, he actually starts off a little bit harsher than Eliphaz, and that he didn't want to have all the placating, all the calmness, and the niceness and whatnot. Instead, he decided to just jump right in there. Now, there are a few points that we covered. We're not going to go over everything, just a few points, just to summarize some of the stuff that we've learned from those particular lessons. The first point that we can definitely go to is that in Job chapter 8, Bildad says something to Job in regards to his family, and that he says in verse 4, if your sons have sinned against him, talking about God, he has cast them away for their transgression. Now that's very big, and we were discussing about this, in that oftentimes we do relate sometimes punishment or disaster or something of that nature to God's wrath to the people. Now, in some cases, we do see in the Bible where that does happen, where because of incident or because of actions that someone took, the Lord does take it out on them, or something happens to them, or maybe He removes His protection to someone. The only thing, though, is that sometimes we go a little too far in that we assume that every single time a disaster happens, then it must have a relation to something of their behavior, and that God was not happy with those particular people. I know for a fact that when Hurricane Katrina hit and Hurricane Rita, many people blamed that on a particular community the homosexual community. And many people thought, well, because of that issue, then that must have meant that the hurricane came, and that's why the city got messed up. Even though they ignore the fact that many of the city engineers there said that the walls that was there and the levees that was there was not adequate in case of any hurricanes. After all, we are a city that is technically below sea level, and we also cleared out a large part of our marsh and stuff to make room for oil wells and that kind of things, and tankers and the things out there. So any hurricane that would come through could very well flood the city. So when we try to blame a community for something that we probably could have stopped, or very protected ourselves against, or even the mere fact that because you do live in a coastal town, hurricanes and that type of nature can happen. Just ask Miami, Galveston, Tampa, any cities that's on a coast. Oftentimes you do get hit by certain storms. It's no different than, I know for a fact, I live here in Ohio, and we might have a tornado or snowstorm in the wintertime, or Alaska gets snowstorms, or if you're in Arizona you get dust storms. It's one of those things of, you can't use something that's a natural occurring thing in that area and then try to blame a community and say, well, the Lord was angry at this reason. And sometimes what Bildad was trying to do as well. I'm not saying that he wasn't wrong. It's just that how the people died, Job's children actually died because of a windstorm that came through, knocked everything down. Also, we know that from the very beginning, Job's family died simply because of what was going on between Satan and God, and proving that Job was having a relationship with the Lord, but it wasn't depending upon his stuff, his family, things of that nature. So we understand where the background's coming from, and Bildad was only doing something that we do even to this day. Oftentimes we look at that and we say, well, this must have happened, so because of this, then this. So we definitely have to be careful. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and say that it never happens, and maybe that the Lord never pulls His protection away. Certainly that can definitely happen. I'm just saying, just be careful about using every natural disaster to be able to prove your point that maybe you don't like a particular thing that people are doing, and then thereby saying, or trying to scare people and saying you need to change for maybe a reason that actually is not even connected. But that is something that Bildad did. Another thing that we can learn is that in Job chapter 8 verse 13, Bildad also said, when he was beginning to talk to Job, and he was saying, "So are the paths of all who forget God, and the hope of the hypocrite shall perish." Then he goes on to say how he builds his house like on a spider web, and he goes on to say that basically anyone who forgets God, which means that you had a relationship with God, but if you forget him, then you will crumble, and just like wickedness, you will then fall apart. In actuality, that's actually not even a bad statement. You can even find in Romans chapter 1 verses 22 through I'm sorry, Romans chapter 1 verses 21 through 32. You can even see more about that from the biblical standpoint of people who had a relationship with God and what happens when they begin to move away from him. So you do kind of see that show up. Now, in actuality, what Bildad was saying here wasn't even necessarily wrong. It's just when you relate it back to Job, he was almost inferring that maybe Job had forgotten God. And in that case, Job didn't, and Bildad was assuming that maybe that's why Job was going through an issue. Exact same reason what Eliphaz was looking at, but we also have to be careful ourselves not to assume that. However, just to encourage everyone, be careful. If you do have the relationship with the Lord, don't let that thing try to separate. Don't try to allow that just to meander and forget God, all the things that he's done in your life. Remember that. Think about what the Lord has done and really go upon that and really allow that to be able to strengthen your relationship in him, and also allow that in his character to make you a better person. Now, of course, we couldn't finish this thing without having Job's response, and Job responded in two basic ways. Like I said, we're only summarizing here, but Job's two basic ways is that number one, he was saying to Bildad that how can he possibly get justice because how powerful God is, and that he didn't think that there was any way where, because God was so high and he was so low, he was like, well, if I'm down here and God is up here, how can I possibly get justice? What words can I say to justify and to say that I'm not wrong? I didn't, as a matter of fact, I don't deserve what I'm going through. So Job had that to say. And then Job also had something else very important to say. And I thought this was interesting that in Job chapter 9 verse 22, he says, "It is all one thing. Therefore I say he destroys the blameless and the wicked." Eliphaz and Bildad has always been saying how the wicked was being destroyed because of their actions, but the righteous was always being blessed and going through good things, and that God would do awesome things for them. What Job was saying, from his perspective, the wicked and the righteous can sometimes go through terrible things. After all, Job was not about to admit to say, listen, I am not one of these evil, wicked people that you think I am. Instead, I am a righteous person, but I'm going through hard times. Sometimes we have to realize that that is also and can be the case. There's a lot of good people who's going through hard times. And it's up to us to be able to help one another instead of trying to destroy one another. We have to be there for each other and realize that, hey, sometimes people are just going through tough times. But that's why we're here, to help one another. Instead of harming, destroying, and judging, let's uplift, let's heal, and let's bless each other. Well, the next time that we're going to have a lesson, we're going to meet, like I said, at the Worthington Church, will be on August, let me get this right, Thursday, August 11th, and we are covering lessons 7, 8, and 9. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but it actually only covers Job chapters 11 through 14, because I believe chapter 12 and 13, well, let's just say there's a split there between 8 and 9. So what we're going to hear is Zophar's response. This is the third of Job's friends, and what we're going to hear is his response, and then of course we're going to hear what Job has to say. And actually the book title comes from one of the verses within what we're about to study. So I look forward to seeing everyone there. Like I said, we're going to be studying lessons 7, 8, and 9. It's not that much. Don't worry, we'll get in that. We will be able to really dive deep into all of that, try to break it down. What does Zophar have to say? What did Job have to say? And we're only covering chapters 11 through 14 in the book of Job. Thank you so much. Make sure you get a copy for yourself. Like I said, we're studying from the book Yet Will I Trust Him, Bible study in the book of Job. Hope you're having a blessed and wonderful time, and also trying to do awesome and great things for people in your life. Thank you, and God bless.